This is gonna be a video review of the new Pint S, which that is not, but we'll get to that in a second. And we've been working on this video since mid-September, shooting and reshooting some of these sequences because it's what we like to do. Really, we wouldn't be able to pull off this type of video if it wasn't for some really good friends who work really hard. But ultimately, it comes down to having partners like the sponsor of today's video, Artlist. So if you want to find out more about how we did it and how Artlist helps us put these types of things together, stick around and make sure you watch the ad part. It helps support this channel. And also, it's a service I've been using for like 100 years. Here's the video. Here we have all three generations of the Onewheel Pint. We've got Dave's original Pint, my Pint X, and now my Pint S. The move from Pint to Pint X made a lot of sense. Essentially, stuff it full of batteries and double the range. Now with the move over to Pint S, the differences aren't so obvious.
Hold on, wait a minute. I see me coming through. Yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, hold up, wait a minute. Bitch, I'm feeling brand new, cause I'm big business. Hold up.
This is the part of the video where I would normally grab the board and hold it up and say, this is the all-new Pint S. But in a lot of ways, it isn't all new. And in fact, in some ways, it isn't new at all. So what is it? Who's it for? And when will I tell you? Now, in this video. I've been riding Onewheels since the Onewheel Plus, and I've owned pretty much every one since then. And one of the most common questions, well, two most common questions people ask are, one, did you make that? And two, could you put a big treaded tire on it? And that's what I wanted to talk about here, because one of the upgrades with the Pint S is this new performance treaded tire. I believe this is the third version of the performance treaded tire that they've made, and I think it's my favorite one yet. It's certainly a softer compound than what you had stock on Onewheels in the past, which is going to mean a little bit less longevity, but the overall ride performance has gone way up. The shape of it, the sidewalls, I'm not a big tire dork, but what I do know is I really like this tire. And there have been tires that Onewheel put out that I didn't like at all. When they first put out the GT and they put out a new kind of more rounded tire in both a treaded and a slick variant, I actually just didn't like that tire, and I've never liked the stock tire on the Pint or the Pint X, which is the same tire. Now, the reason for that is I always found when I'm riding around the city, like at and around max speed, I just found that that tire wasn't very stable, and compared to every other Onewheel I would ride, I would get a lot more speed wobbles and instability issues that I just didn't really like. So for me, they weren't really go out on a fun adventure ride type boards. And that has very much changed with this tire. I've been taking this board out on just nice leisurely late night cruises around the city, around some trails, and I genuinely enjoy the ride on this board. It's nowhere near as fast as the other ones. It still has that kind of aggressive and annoying Pint pushback, but I find when I'm just out for a cruise, a quick grocery run, I don't need max speed. And the combination of this new tire and the foot pads, which we'll talk about in a minute, has just made the overall Pint experience so much better than it used to be. The Pint S now comes stock with the flared rear and front foot pads, and I really like these foot pads. I put these on my Pint X, and they made such a big difference in the overall ride experience. I have size US 10 men's feet, not terribly big, but not terribly small. And I find these foot pads just make it feel a lot more stable and comfortable on the board. The nose and tail on these foot pads have a symmetrical kick front and back, but they're pretty much flat in terms of concave. And some of you might like that, some of you might not. But I do find these foot pads make a massive difference on what the Pint feels like. So that, along with this new treaded tire, makes this feel a lot more different than I would have expected a, slightly modified Pint would feel. But that kind of brings us to something a little confusing about this board, which is you can buy these foot pads and this tire and this Mag Handle Pro for your Pint X. This video is sponsored by Artlist. And Artlist is a library of video making, film making assets that are going to be needed in any single edit that you are making. Use them in personal, corporate, commercial, whatever you want. Ooh, hopping over a little thing. They're going to have something that is going to make your video that much better. For the sake of this video, I wanted to talk about 3 of the main things that I use Artlist for. Ooh, let's get over this. Didn't get over it. I've been using their stock music forever, since 2016, on pretty much every video I have ever made. And it's for good reason. It's high quality music, it's easy to find, it's being updated all the time. The second thing I'm always using is their sound effects. So despite having spent hundreds of dollars on audio packs, I still use Artlist as my primary sound effects library. I'd also mentioned that AI voiceover, which is quite a fun feature, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand all the uses for it. We've used it to create rough outlines of voiceovers that are going to be used in commercial projects. I've also used it to create the sound of a flight attendant telling people on the plane to follow me on Instagram. Just silly things like that.
Please be sure to check your seat back pocket and follow Jesse Driftwood on the internet. Thank you.
So whether you are a content creator, a filmmaker, wannabe small business videographer, I promise you there is something for you on Artlist. So click the link down in the description. I would not be able to make the videos I currently do without them. So Artlist, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. We couldn't have done it without you, because making videos is a whole lot of fun, and making videos that are good is even more fun. Have a good day. I love you. Bye. This board has the same batteries and motor, I'm mostly sure, as the Pint X, so it's getting the same range, the overall same top speed. You can make your Pint X essentially identical to this board. And so if you're a Pint X owner and you like doing some of that DIY stuff, I think that's a great option for you. Heck, if you're even just looking to get your first board, you could look for a used Pint X and then get the foot pads and the tire upgrade, the mag handle. Honestly, who cares? So in terms of value, I think buying a used Pint X is a really good option. Your mileage may vary. You might like custom building. You might like doing the DIY put together stuff. And if that's you, maybe Vesk is a cool option, or maybe buying the used Pint X and upgrading the parts is your option. But if you're just looking for like a really fun ride experience right out of the box, the Pint S has it. This is using functionally the same motor as previous boards, and so you're not getting a massive more amount of torque. In fact, I find if I'm trying to like pick this up really quick off the line, I can feel that little where the motor is like too much, which is a feeling I don't get on my GTS ever. So if you're like a heavier person, like I'm talking, 180 plus pounds, this might not be the board for you. So for a board that's essentially a body kit and a firmware update, I've really only had positive things to say about it so far. And that stops now. The Pint series, to me, has always had one major flaw in its design, and I was really hoping they would have solved it here, but unfortunately, they haven't. In fact, it was the first thing I noticed when pulling it out of the box.
Why don't they put handles here? Onewheel, I want a handle. I want a grab handle.
Now, thankfully, I've spoken to the guys over at the Float Life, and it seems like they are planning on releasing a new front bumper that is not just an air gap for symmetry's sake. but it includes a front grab handle on the board. This feature would actually be more helpful now than ever, because with these flared foot pads, you can actually step on the tail like a skateboard and pick it right up into your hand, which would be fantastic if there was a grab handle there. Ever since the original Pint came out, I've been longing for Future Motion to put out a high-performance pint-sized board. You know, I wanted the GTS in a package that just barely fits under my feet. This is not that, but it is in that direction, and that's a good thing. I've said this a million times before, but the Onewheel is my favorite thing, and I wouldn't hesitate at all to recommend the Pint S to pretty much anyone, whether you're a seasoned Onewheel rider or someone just getting into the sport. I think it's a really well-rounded board that rides well for beginners and experts alike. And while I wish it was faster and had more torque, it doesn't, but my GTS does, so I'm a happy boy. Anyways, thanks for watching, Kate. Love you. Bye.